Coming up next, we continue our focus on abortion on another live call-in program. Joining us are two individuals opposed to abortion, Nancy Myers from the National Right to Life Committee and Frederica Mathewes-Green from the group Feminists for Life.
Nancy Myers of the National Right to Life Committee. What impact could a pro-choice demonstration in Washington, scheduled for November, have on the abortion question?
Well, I don't think much in the long run. You notice they're calling it a mobilization now and spreading it out. I don't think they're very optimistic about getting large numbers here in town. So we're involved in a number of different activities. We are planning our own rally, not as a response to theirs. We've been planning it for a number of months, for April 28th of 1990. And that's just a Celebrate Life rally to bring together people from all 50 states to stand up and be counted. But in any case, since Webster, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of more people wanting to get involved in the pro-life movement, and we're taking advantage of that by getting people politically involved and going to their state legislators and getting involved in the political process.
Now, the pro-life side has a demonstration in Washington each January. What do you think that accomplishes?
Well, I think that's, it's usually, it's on January 22nd, the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, and it will be again this year on January 22nd. And it's not just in Washington. Many people don't understand that all of the 50 National Right to Life state groups also have marches in their own state capitals and will this January. But we wanted to have a march in April to sort of bring people together when they wouldn't be on their own state capitals, but to come to Washington. We think it just shows strength of the pro-life movement. It shows how much people care about unborn children and about life.
Frederica Mathewes-Green of Feminists for Life of America. What do you think the political impact could be, if any, from a demonstration like that?
A demonstration like this? I think, if anything, it will increase the polarization between the pro-choice and the pro-life forces. I don't think anyone will be converted by seeing the women in the streets. It's not going to change any minds or any hearts, but I think that it may mobilize more pro-life people to get out and to get out the vote as they begin to see that the opposition is cranking up, will crank up too.
The other side says the same thing. It will mobilize more on their side.
Yes.
Is it basically
It may well be
just,
doing that.
it's to get publicity to draw attention to the issue?
Certainly, that would be one of the goals of a march, but it just shows that they really do try to attract a lot of attention to things that aren't that substantive, just like they draw attention to things that are good public relations for them, such as the New Jersey governor's race, which is not a clear choice between a pro-abortion and a pro-life candidate, and where the pro-abortion candidate was 17 points ahead of the other candidate before they ever started drawing attention to it. So clearly, they draw attention to things that make good news for them, but aren't really substantive. And we're doing the more substantive types of, grassroots. They don't make headlines, but phone calling, voter identification, those types of things.
Our topic tonight is the pro-life, pro-choice argument. Our guests are actively involved in that debate. Nancy Myers is actually you're the Director of Media Relations and National Spokesperson for the National Right to Life. Before joining Right to Life, you're a business reporter. Tell us a little bit about the group.
Well, National Right to Life is an organization with 50 affiliates. So in all 50 states, we have state groups. They're fairly autonomous. And in addition to that, we have 3,000 chapters across the country. And we're involved in political activities, voter identification, as I mentioned, writing congressmen, that sort of thing, as well as education, because we really believe that education can help people to understand exactly what abortion is all about, what it involves, the developing humanity of unborn children. And as well, we're involved in lobbying and public relations activities.
And Frederica Mathewes-Green is Vice President for Communications for Feminists for Life of America. You've been with the group for 4 years. If you could tell us a bit about your organization.
Our organization was founded in 1972 by Pat Galtz, who was a leader in NOW, as a matter of fact. And she was expelled from NOW because of her pro-life sympathies. She was suspected of not towing the party line adequately. And Mother Jones magazine did an article on us last May, and they asked Molly Yard, would this happen again today? And she said, definitely. There's no place in NOW for a pro-life woman. We were excluded from that organization.
We'll be taking your calls in just a few moments. The numbers will be listed throughout the show at the bottom of the screen. And once again, the 30-day policy, if you've called in within the last month, wait, let someone else get through. First, I'd like to look back. I'd like to ask both of you the same question. The Webster case came out on July 3rd of this year. It's been a few months now. You've obviously had a chance to examine it more closely. Is your assessment of it now any different from what it was in the beginning?
No, we still see it as just the turning point in the beginning of an opportunity. It didn't overturn Roe. It didn't even protect many unborn children. What it did was, for the first time in 16 years, allowed the people of America, through their state lawmakers, to effectively to pass laws which would protect human life. And that's what we intend to do, to go back to the states, to educate people about abortion, and to work at the grassroots level to pass legislation.
Your assessment?
I agree with that. I would say that there was an initial feeling of elation that probably has dimmed some as reality has become more clear to us as the months have gone by. But I am very grateful for the opportunity now for the people of America to say what they think on this. We were prevented from that before. And if we really trust the common man, the common woman, to decide what should be done about abortion, then we have nothing to fear from Webster or from completely overturning Roe v. Wade. It should be an issue that the people decide.
Do both of your groups get involved in some, you mentioned New Jersey, so I know your group gets involved in it, but does your group also get involved in state races?
No, we don't.
You do not? Okay.
On the local chapter level they may, but as a national organization we don't.
You were talking about New Jersey. Let's go back up there. It's Jim Courter versus Jim Florio.
That's right. And National Right to Life is not involved in the race, and we're the nation's largest pro-life group, so that would signal that it's not a true contest between a pro-life and a pro-abortion candidate. We have been involved in a number of other races, and there have been, in fact, 10 electoral races since the Webster decision. I think that one of the things that's been widely distributed in the press is that the pro-abortion side has a new strength, voting strength, and that will be exhibited through elections upcoming. And Sharon Rodine, on before us, mentioned 2 races, one in California and one in South Carolina, in which pro-abortion candidates won. And that's true, but there have been 8 other races, 6 state races, and 2 congressional races. And pro-life candidates have won all of those races, including a very well-publicized one last week in Florida. Ileana Ross-Lettinen won Claude Pepper's seat in Florida. She's strongly pro-life. And as well, Dr. Bob Lanier came in first in a race for Jim Wright's congressional seat. He had nearly twice as many votes as the pro-abortion candidate, Jim Lane, who was backed by Sarah Weddington, the lawyer who argued the Roe versus Wade case before the Supreme Court. So clearly there's no new pro-abortion voting strength. What's always been the case is that there's a small but significant percentage of people who vote strictly on the abortion issue, and most of those voters are pro-life, and that's continued to be the case even after Webster, and we expect it to continue.
In the New Jersey race, though, NARAL, the National Abortion Rights Action League, has made a big thing about participating in that race.
Right. Well,
the group has said it will make a big effort. Now, do you do anything to counter that?
No, because it's just a public relations ploy that they're using. They took a race where one candidate is very pro-abortion and is 17 points ahead of another one who's never had a clear position on the abortion issue, and they see it. They can exploit that in the public in the media. They can say, we're going to elect a pro-abortion candidate, and we're going to defeat what they call an anti-choice candidate, and it's not a race at all. It's not a race where abortion will be a deciding factor.
Let's go to the phones. Naples, Florida, you're on the air.
Hi, I'd like to make a comment and then ask a question.
Sure.
My comment is that I know of women who have abortions for reasons, and of course the logical conclusion of a woman having complete control of her reproductive rights is the example of a woman who won't look good in her bathing suit for the summer, and she, I've heard stories about this, about married women who have abortions for reasons like that, and I just, I can't fathom it myself. But the other thing is, I'd like to ask a question about what your guests think will happen in the upcoming special legislative session in Florida.
I'm going to turn that over to you, since you've made such a special study of what's going on in the legislature.
Well, we don't see any of the 50 states as as a definite win or a definite loss. Each one of the 50 states is going to be a battleground, and we're in all 50 states. That's one of the strengths of the pro-life movement. We don't have the sophisticated, we don't have a lot of money or the sophisticated public relations efforts, but we do have the people behind us. We have 3,000 chapters across the country, as I said, and they'll all be working in their states to pass legislation. So,
is there anything special in the Florida race that you're aware of?
No, in the Florida race or the special election or the special session.
Special session, excuse me.
Right. Well, there'll be a number of types of legislation. They're still working on the different types. There's nothing specific yet.
I could make a comment about one legislation that's being considered in Florida, being promoted by our chapter there, which is the Women's Right to Redress Act. And this is to expand the rights of women who seek to sue abortionists for malpractice. At present, this is a very difficult situation for women. They must get another abortionist to testify that something went wrong. And due to the limited field of abortion and due to the natural tendency to support each other, this is very difficult. So the Women's Right to Redress Act encompasses 7 sections, and that's one of them. Other sections are also promoting the rights of women who have had abortions.
Let's go down to Noonan, Georgia.
Yes. My question was really, I was kind of hoping to talk to the other people when they were on. They kept mentioning that they had statistics showing that majority of the people were for abortion, but they were talking about on one-on-one. Of course, if they're in an abortion clinic getting this kind of a count, then I can understand why it would be that percentage. But the people I have come in contact with and talked about this, it's quite the opposite. So I would like, if possible, some kind of a legislation come up that could make these people tell where they get this information from. I think it's false propaganda.
All right, thank you very much.
I do agree with that. And one thing you'll notice about so many polls is the way that they ask the question. They'll say, do you favor a woman's right to control her body? Or are you in favor of oppressing her? It's often not phrased very fairly. You'll see that they stack the deck in their questions. I believe that if you go and really ask the people what they think, over and over people say that they believe abortion is wrong. Many of them will say that it's a woman's right to choose, but not the majority. And even those I think they vacillate, they feel uncertain, they realize that a life is lost in abortion. And when they really come face to face with that and see that a baby dies every time an abortion happens, then we'll see more and more people turning to the pro-life side. A New York Times poll in early August showed that 67% of the women polled supported a strong women's movement in America. And yet roughly half of them promoted restrictions on abortion, more restrictions than we have now.
And one of the perceptions that is erroneous that many of the women's groups try to put forward is that women are all pro-abortion. Well, as you can see from Frederica and I being here, all women are not pro-abortion. In fact, many women are pro-life, and polls show that men are more pro-abortion than women, are pro-abortion in greater numbers than women. So it's ludicrous for these women's groups to sort of claim that all women are pro-abortion or that all women are going to start voting pro-abortion when many women have been voting pro-life for years.
Let's go to Des Moines, Iowa. You're next.
Hello. I've been watching these programs, different things on abortion topics and that. And personally, I don't feel abortion is a good thing to do, but, But the one thing I've noticed is that everybody's forgetting more or less about the male part of the issue. The women bearing the children and all, and they got the right to their own body, but don't seem like the men has any input whatsoever of whether they have children or whether they don't.
That's a very good point. It does take two people to make a baby. And the downside of this for women and for women's rights is that when women say, it's only my right, no man has the right to give me any advice or put any restrictions on me in killing this child, then men begin to say, why should I support this child? You're the one that chose to continue the pregnancy. Why the heck should I pay for 18 years to support this baby? So that the care of children becomes more and more relegated to women. Women become more and more burdened with the financial problems of raising a child, and men see that their responsibility is less and less. So it doesn't serve women either.
One of the types of legislation that the National Right to Life Committee is looking at in the different states would involve fathers in the decision. There have been a number of tragic cases where fathers have said, I will adopt the child, I will take care of the child, you don't need to do anything once you deliver. So we're looking at types of legislation that would involve fathers in the decision, because up until now, fathers are completely powerless to do anything.
Let's go down to Austin, Texas. You're on C-SPAN. Go right ahead.
Good evening. Coincidentally, you just addressed one of the points I would have made, that I feel that basically the primary beneficiaries of abortion have not really been women so much as it has been the, well, to use a loaded word, promiscuous male, who can go out and have sex as often as he wants, and if there's a pregnancy, he can always feel like, well, it's not my problem, she doesn't want it, she can always have an abortion. Mm-hmm. Or he can even feel like a hero if he comes in and chips in half the money for the abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, two things. I've noticed that since the Webster case, several previously conservative and usually pro-life politicians seem to be edging away, seem to be backtracking, and I've been very disappointed by this. I wonder if you feel that this is likely to continue, if a lot of previously conservative pro-life candidates are going to start backing away and saying, well, maybe that's not exactly what I meant before.
No, that really hasn't happened at all. There's been some talk of that in the press, and the pro-abortion groups have been making a lot of noise about it, but it really hasn't happened. There have been several candidates who haven't had a strong position one way or another on the abortion issue. They may have voted against funding of abortion, which is not pro-life by a long shot, or they may have expressed some opinions about it, but there's no sort of Henry Hyde hasn't changed his view on this, and the other strongly pro-life lawmakers and leaders in our society haven't changed their minds. So that's really, that hasn't happened at all.
Who are some of the people you rely on most in Congress?
Well, Henry Hyde, as I mentioned. Chris Smith, who is co-chair of the Congressional Pro-Life Caucus.
From New Jersey.
From New Jersey, has been a solid pro-life leader, very reasonable, and has worked hard for the pro-life movement.
Let's go down to San Antonio, Texas. You're on the air.
I'm a grandmother and a mother, but what I would like to ask these ladies is this. They are for, no abortion or anything. Why don't they spend their time trying to help the children who need help now? They don't seem to have a program that can take care of thousands of unwanted babies that are here, and I'd like to know why.
I'm really glad you asked that. There's a lot of fallacies and misunderstandings about this. There aren't any unwanted babies, and there aren't any unwanted children. Every baby in America is adopted. The white babies instantly, the minority babies, it takes a few months, but there really is no waiting time for babies to be adopted. And half of all the American children adopted every year are older children and babies with problems. In fact, there are waiting lists for spina bifida babies. There are waiting lists for Down syndrome babies. There are even waiting lists for AIDS babies. The reason why we have children languishing in foster care, as they say, and only 10% or less of the children in foster care are available for adoption, is that there's so much red tape to get through. The average length of time to get a child out of foster care is 2 1/3 years. And because it's so long, many people just give up and adopt foreign children. There aren't any unwanted babies. And is being unwanted reason for capital punishment?
Let's go to Salinas, California. You're next.
Salinas.
Salinas, go right ahead. You're still next.
Yes. I tried to get on the other program and I couldn't make it. I'm 58 years old. When I was 15, I got pregnant. I got married, had a baby. 6 months later, I got pregnant again after the baby was born. The only way I knew was how my sister-in-law told me, drink turpentine. I don't recommend it to anybody, and I wouldn't recommend them putting into law that you can't have a legal abortion because turpentine will really tear your insides up, just as bad as a coat hanger. And women will do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I hear a lot of pain, a lot of struggle there. You've had a hard time with this, and I really respect that. I by no means am in favor of illegal abortion. And I understand the reasons that drive women to abortion. We don't live in a society that's fair to women. Women who have abortions are rewarded in many ways. They get promotions, they find it easier to get jobs. Society is set up for women being not pregnant. It's not friendly to pregnant women, as you know from your own experience. Life for a pregnant woman or a woman with many young children can be extremely hard. We would like to see there be changes in our society and in our structure and in our business world so that pregnant women have the support they need. And we're doing what we can for that. Abortion's not the answer. Killing a baby is never the answer.
I think we have another call. I'm not sure where it's from. Go right ahead.
It's Warrenton, Missouri.
Okay, go right ahead, Warrenton.
Thank you. I notice the pro-choice ladies are usually very glib, making generalities about who's for and who's against. And there's another aspect of it that another gentleman did mention that I'm interested in is the role of the father, particularly a married father, living with his wife. You never hear anything about this. The pro-choice people imply that the only people having abortions are poor women, young women, victims of incest, rape, and so forth. What I would like to hear, and I hope these ladies could give some statistics, is how many abortions are performed a year on the average, how many are performed by are performed on married women, and how many of them are performed on married women living with their husbands, and did the husband have anything to say? It's part of him. A child is the union of a man and a woman, and that's part of that man. And if he wants that child, does he have a voice? Would he have a voice? Well, the pro-choice people have their way. I would like to hear some statistics like this, plus how many women actually died using coat hangers, how many women really died from illegal abortions.
All right, thank you very much, Missouri.
Well, let me take the first point, and that's the number of married women getting abortions. It's, again, this is an estimate figure. It's about 1/4 of all abortions. And again, as the gentleman mentioned, fathers, even that are married to women, are powerless to have a say in whether their unborn children will be killed or not, and that's really a tragedy. The second point he made was the illegal abortions. And as Frederica said, no one in the pro-life movement is for illegal abortion. We're not for legal abortion. We're not for illegal abortion. We want it to stop, and we hope to join forces with the pro-abortion people once abortion is made illegal to put out of business those back alley butchers. We deplore them just as much as the other side does. One of the interesting statistics that is put forth by the pro-abortion forces is that before Roe versus Wade, 5,000 women died from illegal abortions, and people who have since left that side agree that they just really pulled that out of the air. The closest figures we have from the Centers for Disease Control, the year before abortion was made legal by Roe versus Wade, 39 women died. And certainly 39 women is a tragedy, and we hope to end that as well, but 1.5 million lives lost every year is an even greater tragedy.
Let's go up the coast to Portland, Maine. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. I went to a monastery school taught by Franciscan monks in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and I came up pretty overzealous out of that school. I didn't even think people weren't Catholics. But right now, then I'm 26, I attend the University of Southern Maine, and my faith is, pretty down. And as I was working there at the university, in the science building, I seen a 3-month fetus in a bottle, one of those science bottles, and it just shook me up a little bit. And I would like to direct my question to Mrs. Nancy Myers, does she believe that a 3-month-year-old fetus could make it to heaven?
Well, I think that's a religious issue, and what we're talking about is not is not whether the child will go.
I could say
Yeah.
something about that. We believe that a 3-month-old fetus or a 1-day-old fetus is every bit as human as you or I or any of us. And if any of us can go to heaven, certainly that fetus can.
Let's go to Hawaii. Honolulu, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hello.
I'd like to know if the ladies would divulge their particular opinions on the capital punishment issue. I'm on the fence post at this point. I don't know which way to go with this issue. I'm confused as to how, and I'm not making any value judgments here, but I'm confused as to how a person can claim that they're pro-life and at the same time agree with the capital punishment. Now, I know babies or unborn children have never committed a crime in their life. I understand that because they don't have much of a life. At that point, they haven't lived long enough to commit a crime, and an older person does. But I have a problem with the whole title of pro-life. And one other comment, relating to the gentleman previous before me and a couple of 3 other guys, stating that the fathers of these children don't have any say-so. I think that a father should have a little say-so, but at the same time, I heard one of the ladies say that to make a baby, it takes 2, and I agree with that, but it does not take 2 people to carry a baby for 9 months. I'm not saying that the mother has total right to disavow any relationship between the father and the child, or the unborn child, but that mother has to carry that child for 9 months, and therefore I would think that the scale would weigh a little more in her favor as to whether she wants to make that decision. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Thank you. Your 2 questions. The first one had to do with the death penalty. Our organization is very adamantly against the death penalty. We are pro-life. We believe in protecting life from the moment of conception until natural death. We are against euthanasia. We are against aborting babies because they're handicapped. We're against capital punishment. I understand you say you're on the fence, and if you read about a terrible crime, Ted Bundy, for example, you might think, wouldn't the world be better off without him? But really, to be consistent, you have to say it's not for us to judge. It should never be up to us to take life. We just can't take on that kind of power, or else we begin to abuse it, as has happened in America in the last 16 years. Your second question was about the rights of a father, and I know what you mean. It disproportionately falls on the woman to have to carry that baby for 9 months and then to go to the birth process. I know I did it 3 times. I know how hard that is. But I don't see how we can give the man a little bit of a vote. Do you know? Either she has the abortion or she doesn't. And I think that because we're talking about only 9 months out of the woman's life, but perhaps 100 years in the child's life, the father should certainly have equal say with the woman.
I'd like to take the question on capital punishment.
Well, the National Right to Life Committee doesn't take a position on capital punishment, and unlike Feminists for Life, which is a fairly homogeneous group of people, the National Right to Life Committee encompasses a wide variety of people, including feminists, including people who maybe are in favor of capital punishment. But you'll find, actually, talking to different people in the pro-life movement, many are against it. But because we have diverse views on it, we only take a stand on abortion and euthanasia and infanticide, as does Feminists for Life.
Oh, there was a statistic that I'm remembering from, I read it in the National Right to Life Convention booklet, that 3 times as many pro-abortion advocates as pro-life advocates favor the death penalty. That is, more people like the death penalty and abortion than are pro-life and also approve of the death penalty.
Let's go down to southern Florida. Hollywood, you're on the air.
Hello, Jim.
Hello.
And Nancy and Frederica. The issue, I don't believe, is so much pro-life or pro-abortion, but the decision that the woman's making. The first decision obviously was wrong. If, in fact, she wants an abortion, her first decision to have sex must have been wrong. Her next decision as to whether or not she was going to use protection was wrong. And then her final decision to have an abortion in a time when she's under a lot of pressure, obviously she cannot make a very rational decision, especially if 75% of the women are not married. So the answer would be they're not capable of making a proper decision based on all of that history of the wrong decisions they've made to this point. Does that make any sense?
Well, it's a bit harsh. It does make sense. I understand completely what you're saying, and I feel vehemently that women should have the right to control their bodies, but that when you come to the point of abortion, it's another body. It's somebody else's body. And that if you really are in control, if you're really responsible and you're on top of things, you will be using some form of birth control. And 50% of the women who have abortions report that they were not using any form of birth control. So this shows a degree of irresponsibility. Now, women find themselves in positions where they are emotionally blackmailed, they're tricked into having sex, they're seduced. Women don't always have the power that in an ideal world they would have to not get pregnant. Nevertheless, the bottom line is a human life is too high a price to pay.
Let's go down to Weaver, Alabama. You're on C-SPAN.
Thank you. First off, I am pro-choice. My question is, many pro-life organizations have come out against abortion no matter what, but then they qualify it with unless it's a case of rape or incest. And I have problems with that because many of them can't tell the difference between a fetus that was conceived out of rape or incest, and that really bothers me that they have not come up with a dividing line. My comment is that many of these organizations have said, look at your local politicians or your next election. If they are pro-choice, vote for them. If they're pro-life, vote for them. In other words, make your dividing line on your next election on your abortion stance. I think that's a very dangerous idea for any organization to take, for me to decide on this next election on one issue. And that bothers me an awful lot.
Well, most pro-life organizations, I don't know of one that does take the position that abortion is acceptable in cases of rape and incest. As the caller mentioned, a child conceived in the horrible circumstance of rape or incest is just as much a human being as you or I. So clearly that's not acceptable. That's too high of a price to pay. So no, we don't consider that acceptable. The second point he made about people voting single issue on the abortion issue, I think it will be an increasing number of people, an increasing percentage of people, but again, it's the deciding factor in a fairly small percentage of people. We hope that will grow because we're convinced as more people learn about the abortion issue, they'll vote pro-life. But at the moment, it's still a fairly small percentage of people, and will continue to be so.
Let's go down to Port Richey, Florida. Go right ahead.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
I have a couple of comments.
Okay.
And one question. And the first comment is, if they wanted to get rid of the abortion issue, why don't they allow women to have their tubes tied or go in for some type of surgery so that they wouldn't get pregnant? But that's a choice that's made by so many doctors, and you don't have that choice. Another thing is, how about if the women's lib would turn around and make a law or try to get a law about men having vasectomies and not having a choice whether they wanted to or not? And my question is, I believe that we're all supposed to be law-abiding citizens. And I feel that the pro-lifers are obstructing our laws when they block our way of getting into a public building. Is that not so? That's my right if I want to go into a building?
Well, the National Right to Life Committee, which involves most of the pro-life people in America, the vast majority, are involved in pretty mainstream activities. As I said before, it's not the kind of thing that grabs headlines. It's writing your congressman and making phone calls and getting other people involved. So we're not involved in any illegal activities. And some other activities get a lot of headlines, but what we're involved with, what the mainstream, what most of the people in the pro-life movement are involved with, are very sort of mainstream, through the proper channels, activities.
Let's go down to Newport Beach, Florida. You're on the air.
California.
Oh, okay. It says Florida, but we believe you.
Yeah, I guess it's about the same anyway. Listen, I wanted to call through, get through earlier and talk to the other two ladies. I hope they're listening, but it is amazing how they are light years behind in their thinking, and it seems that they come from their decision on the abortion issue is completely from an emotional issue, and the emotion must be taken out of the issue to make the proper decision. It's a legal decision, which it is now, but
I'll tell you in a second, I think it's a wrong legal decision, but it's strictly a legal decision. You can have no emotion in it at all. But the legal matter comes into play, in my opinion, where the person who has the say in the matter, or should have the say in the matter, has none, which is the baby, okay? Very simple. It is against the law. There is no legal way that you can put somebody to death who hasn't committed any crime without them having any say-so. And that's exactly what's happened. It's simple. And it just seems amazing that nobody can seem to grasp that, that when the fate, whenever you decide the fate of someone in a legal matter, when your fate is being decided when you have not committed a crime, you have obviously being put to death. There's only one person that has a say-so, and that's you, and they have none.
All right, thank you very much, Newport Beach.
Yeah. Well, you're right in the fact that a lot of the pro-abortion people are really behind the times. They refuse to acknowledge or talk about any of the science that we have now. We really have science and education and knowledge on our side because things like sonograms and fiber optics allow us to see the child in the womb as never before, and we know a lot of things that we didn't know before. And many women who are in the pro-life movement now have had abortions and then realize later, either when they have children or when they find out how developed their child was when they aborted it, are incredibly traumatized by it. And that's another one of the types of legislation we're looking at, informed consent, that if a woman, and that the other side you would think would support, and they don't, that if a woman is going to make this decision, she should be fully informed, not only about her unborn baby, but about the method of abortion and how it would affect her own health. And that's something I think Feminists for Life works on as well.
I know this one's Florida. Panama City, go right ahead.
Hello. I was a mother who had a choice to giving up my baby for adoption or abortion. I did choose adoption. It was very rewarding. I would like to know how women like myself can get involved in my community at this time in helping other women realize that it's a selfish act to have an abortion. Just an example, how many years of your life do you sleep away? At least 7. What is 9 months to bring that child into the world, to give it to somebody who can't have children?
It's very well said. And there are a lot of ways you can help. At this point in America, pregnancy crisis centers, centers that help women in troubled pregnancies and in difficult situations, outnumber abortion clinics by 4 to 3. And I'm sure there's one in your community. And they need your help. They need help counseling women, supporting women. They need homes for women that have been thrown out of their home by parents that didn't understand. They need maternity clothes, baby clothes. They need help in so many ways. And there's a place for you.
Go to the West Coast, San Francisco. You're on the air.
To Frederica, I was surprised to hear the statistics that you stated about there being a waiting list for minority children and such in the country. Where would I be able to find information on that or read about that situation? And also, as we know, abortion did not start with Roe. It's obviously gone on for years and years. What is your and the other lady there? What is your feeling about if it was reversed and you were no longer allowed abortions? What do you feel should happen to an individual who had an abortion during a time that it was illegal?
During the time it was illegal. First of all, my statistics on adoption come from the National Center for Adoption. National Center for Adoption in Washington, D.C. I don't have the phone number, but you can get it from your library. That's where I got it. What kind of punishment should be inflicted on the nefarious woman who goes ahead and has an abortion, even though it's illegal? I think she's suffered enough, don't you? I don't think that this should be something that we imprison women for. I see a woman who's had an abortion as a victim of abortion. She's been damaged, she's been invaded by sharp instruments, and she's lost her child. It's the abortionists that I want us to go after. And I think that when women are empowered to press their malpractice suits against abortionists, that women who've had abortions are going to be the ones to bring the abortion industry down.
Nancy Myers of the National Right to Life Committee, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Frederica Mathewes-Green of Feminists for a Life of America, thanks very much for being with us. And thank you for your calls, and have a pleasant weekend.
These call-in programs focusing on the abortion issue will re-air Sunday morning beginning at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 Pacific. Stay with us now for coverage of the Jerry Williams Radio Show from WRKO in Boston. That's coming up after we take a break to look at our program schedule.